Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Here today while we're taking a little bit of a break from our regular player's guide stuff, delving into different classes for Pathfinder and the like, today I wanted to talk about one of my more favored villain builds that I had ever put together for Pathfinder, and that was coincidentally using the Druid. Actually, talking about the Druid class got me thinking about this, and I featured it in a series of videos before, but I felt it was worth bringing back up again here, just as an example of how much fun you can really have with just such a thing. But before we get into all of that, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down there to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But now we'll actually start talking about the Druid here, and I had so much fun with this one. I named him Elias Briarthorn, Keeper of the Third Standing Stone. He's this Druid. He is one of the elders for this Druidic circle, and part of his backstory is that his circle has come into conflict with humans and civilized society, settling in a region bordering on this very ancient forest that his druidic circle and conclave has been in for generations, thousands upon thousands of years, and their expansion is starting to despoil some of the more sacred sites in their region, in their territory, and they've already given and given and given, and now things are being pushed a bit too far. And part of what happens is that a group of people, unbeknownst to the region's de facto ruler, magistrate, whatever you want to slice them as, has ended up going in deeper into the most sacred parts of the woods, found this grove that Elias Briarthorn was responsible for, and slew his animal companion. And his animal companion was no less than the embodiment of the physical manifestation of this ancient forest spirit. And with it being slain, he has been fundamentally and irrevocably been corrupted by just this need for revenge and hatred. It's just become all consuming and has just festered within him, making him a Blight Druid. And as a Blight Druid, some of his class abilities have been fundamentally altered and changed, and also his goals have just changed as well too. Now, while he's not seeking to destroy these ancient woods that he and his people have called home for countless generations, unrecorded in the annals of history, he is still bent on his vengeance to the point that that corruption is seething into every single last fiber, leaf, and shoot growing up from the forest floor. So he is not only a threat to the rest of civilized society at large in the region, but he's also at risk of just completely irrevocably corrupting the rest of his druidic circle, many of which are still following him, as well as several non-druidic adherents that have populated the region over the generations as well. But let's actually get into what the mechanics and effects are of this class. So for this, he's a neutral evil human druid, level 13, and he went with the Blight Druid option, the archetype. Now, for his abilities here, the way I've arrayed this here is meant to be quick and easy to sum up. You kind of want to have certain blocks of information together just so you can look at things close together at a glance and have everything ready to go. So for his perception, he's got a plus 21 total, and a good chunk of that comes from a particular magic item he wears, which we'll talk about in a little bit. He also has an initiative score of plus 6. His armor class is 17. He has a total of 137 hit points. Fortitude save of plus 12, reflex save plus 6, will save plus 13, and damage reduction of 10 unless it's an adamantium weapon striking him. And the spell save DCs are 15 plus the spell level. For his stats, he has a strength of 14, dex of 15, con of 18, intelligence of 15, wisdom of 20, and charisma of 14. Now, for his attacks, he will attack typically, at least with the melee weaponry, using Rot Talon, which is a plus 13 and plus 8 to represent his 2 attacks, dealing 1d6 plus 4 damage, critting on an 18 to 20 for times 2 damage, and also dealing an additional 1d6 flesh rot damage that is not calculated in with the crit, which, for all intents and purposes here, either counts as negative energy or necrotic energy, however you want to flavor it. Now, if he does power attack, he takes a -3 penalty to his attack score overall, but gains plus 6 damage, or plus 9 if he's two-handing this particular unique magic scimitar. Next is Plague Heart, which has the usual plus 13 and plus 8, doing 1d8 plus 5 for that strength and half damage, critting on a 20 but dealing times 3 damage, and also that 1d6 flesh rot. However, this also incurs a fortitude save DC 21, and you'll want to see the Plague Bearer ability for that. So to get to that, we are now going to move on to his class abilities as a Blight Druid. To start with, he gets Nature Bond, getting a familiar as a wizard. In this case, he's going with a Blighted Toad. He also picks up the Destruction Domain. Destructive Smite 8 times a day, plus 1/2 level morale bonus to damage for a total of plus 6. Then he has a Destructive Aura, 30-foot radius, 1 round per level. All attacks get plus 6 damage, and all crits auto-confirm. Pairs really nicely with the Rot Talon Scimitar. He also gains extra domain spells. First level is True Strike, second level is Shatter, third level is Rage, fourth level gets Inflict Wounds, which, not great, fifth level is Shout, sixth level is Harm, which is significantly better than Inflict Wounds, but still probably maybe not the most exciting option ever. In seventh level, he gets to pick up Disintegrate. He also gets Vermin Empathy, which improves the attitude of vermin, which makes them unfriendly, and also incurs a -4 penalty with animals unless they have the disease special attack, which, for our story, since his corruption is spreading throughout the wood, many of the different animals in the area that he occupies are corrupted with disease. So he does not take a penalty in this instance, although that's a caveat to the story, that's a circumstances created by the writer, in this case me, so that's a bit of prerogative there, but still interesting, useful, and very, very effective. Then we have Nature Sense, which gives a +2 bonus to knowledge nature and the survival skill. He also picks up Woodland Stride, which natural growth that counts as difficult terrain is actually treated as normal. And then he also has Miasma. Adjacent creatures make DC 21 Fortitude save or end up being sickened for 1 round. He also has the Wild Shape ability as per druids. 5 times a day he can transform into either a huge or diminutive sized animal, elementals, or plant creatures. But then he is also Blight-blooded, which makes him immune to all supernatural and normal diseases, as well as being immune to the sickened and nauseated status, which is massive. That's a huge boon. Lastly, he has the Plague Bearer ability. So his touch attacks, unarmed strikes, and natural weapons force a DC 21 Fortitude save, or the target will contract a disease per the Contagion spell. In this case, we are going to stick with Blinding Sickness. The target becomes sickened, fatigued, and exhausted. Standard actions will require a Fortitude save, or they lose that action. 2 failed Fortitude saves renders the target permanently blind. This is an utterly ruthless opponent, and using his Flesh Rot Staff, which counts as a spear, will transfer this ability. And again, that's a little bit of prerogative of the writer, the creator, wanting to make this a more effective, more terrifying villain. So striking with this spear, which gives him reach around his targets, will allow him to transfer and use this ability pretty regularly. The magic item is such that this will count as a natural weapon for him because it's so fundamentally tied to him and his plagued, blighted status. So, absolutely devastating for players to have to go up against. Now, as far as his proficiencies goes, he's got all the standard druid proficiencies with clubs, daggers, darts, quarterstaffs, scimitars, scythes, sickles, short spears, slings, spears, natural attacks, as well as light and medium armor and shields, although for those he's only allowed wooden and hide only. For feats, we definitely have picked up natural spells, so he can cast in wild shape, combat casting for a +4 bonus to casting defensively since he's the villain for a campaign arc and he's definitely going up against players as DMs, we have different goals for the characters that we put together. And in this case, we want him to be able to cast effectively and still get his spells out there. Then we also have improved initiative to help him go at least a little bit higher in the initiative order. Quick draw, so he's not burning up a whole lot of actions and can deal a ton of damage with his weapon. Combat reflexes, which will net him a couple extra attacks, especially using a weapon that grants him a little bit of extra reach. And then standstill, which will essentially stop enemies from moving past him. Power attack and cleave, both of which will up his combat potential significantly. Then for his skills, he has climb of +6, fly bonus of +11, handle animal +11, heal +9, knowledge geography and knowledge nature of +14 each. Perception gets a total of a +21 bonus. Ride gets a +6, spellcraft a +13, survival is up to a +16, and swim for a +6. Now, all the way around, this is going to be a very terrifying, very effective character. And as far as his magical gear goes, most of it was hewn from the corpse of his slain animal companion. The hide that he wears is a magic hide, the hide of Ymnarus, his animal companion, the physical manifestation of the forest spirit. And he also, rot talon is carved from the leg bones of the creature, and then his staff, his spear, is his own personal staff, but it still has been such a fundamental part of him, carved from the heartwood of an ancient oak in the forest, that it has too become corrupted as well. And then finally, he wears a crown. The creature was this great stag. That's what his animal companion was just this great stag with this incredible crown of horn on its head. And that's what he wears now, the Crown of Ymnarus. And wearing it allows him to see through the eyes of every blighted creature in the forest. Not all at once, he has to focus in order to draw that up, but it does give him a significant bonus to his perception skill, and is just a generally potent magic item. And this pained, dead spirit is just in such agony that it has inherently corrupted him, and wearing the crown ensures that that corruption continues. Wearing the hide ensures that it just festers within him, and as everything festers and just lingers and becomes so cancerously toxic and poisonous, it just leaks and drips down along the rot talon scimitar and through the very essence of the staff, that it just makes him incredibly dangerous to fight. And for this campaign that I had imagined, all of the different animals of this ancient wood have just become corrupted by this rot, and they transfer this sickness along and spread it amongst the rest of their kind. Woodwoads, creatures from 3.5 D&D, are just inherently infested with this. Everything about this is just terrible and spreads, and as this group of druids begins to slowly wage more decisive, more protracted, more awful war upon the rest of civilized society as they expand, seeking to erase them from the region entirely, and sinking the entire depths of this place into just the utter and cloying stench of this decay. So, all the way around, this is how much fun you can have with druids. Granted, this again is an archetype, but this makes for a really powerful villain. All the way around. And this doesn't even get into their spells. We already covered a pretty effective array of spells to select from, and most of those apply pretty well here as well. I mean, Spike Growth is definitely a great spell for battlefield control. I mean, causing the players to have to move at half speed, take damage, and also just suffer the entire way trying to close the distance with him or trying to get around him. And the fact that this guy can change into huge sized creatures allows him a great degree of battlefield control. So druids can absolutely make for great opponents to throw at your players. Certainly I plan on doing so at some point in the future for some of my players whenever we can get around to playing, if we ever make it that far. But hey, c'est la vie, that's how it goes. But let me know your thoughts. Go on down to the comments below and let me know. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Hit those like or dislike buttons and let me know what you might change or what you think should be different for this particular kind of build. Granted, this has some homebrew touches with it in regards to the magic items, but with the overall story and the structure here, I feel like it makes a certain amount of sense. And sure, maybe some DMs might be inclined to change it, but you know, you go with what's most fun for you and your players. None of this is anything that ever has to be set in stone or taken with 100% seriousness. It's a game. It's a hobby. It's a lot of fun, and it's great. It's absolutely great to have, but you know, it's a game. Play with this, adjust it, and tweak it to whatever suits you, your campaigns, and your players. Should you decide that you want to take any of this, please feel free to take this and run with it and use it. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.